Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our podcast. Thank you for joining us this evening. Hopefully this evening is going to be helpful, and we're going to look at your post-16 options and supporting your young person through this transition journey. So just a little bit of housekeeping before we get started. This podcast will be recorded and the recording will be available on KentChoices. And we will also email it out to everyone as well. So if there's any bits that you want to come back to or rewatch later on, then you can do so. The Q&A box is currently shut, but we will open this towards the end of the podcast and we will let you know when this is open. So if you do have any questions that you want to ask at the end, then please use this feature. Not all the questions will be published, so if there are duplicate, we will just answer a couple of the kind of same ones and the most popular ones. And we will also won't answer anything that's too personal to individuals. So if you do have any specific questions that are relating directly to your young person, there's an email address on the screen now, and you can find that on the KentChoices website. Please do get in contact with us directly, and we'll be more than happy to talk through any of your individual situations. So a little introduction then from myself and the team. My name is Zara Lawrence and I'm joined today by my colleague Ed Panting. And we work with the education people across all Kent schools to provide careers advice in terms of sessions covering post-16 pathways, Kent choices, CV writing, employability skills and apprenticeships. And the education people team on the whole, we communicate with young people and parents throughout this whole transition period, either by text, emails or phone calls, and sometimes postcards. So you might hear from us in a couple of different ways throughout this period. So the aim of this podcast then and the focus is to inform and empower parents of Year 11 leavers to help support their young person through transition into education, employment or training. So we want to give you some ideas of what that different post-16 options and pathways are, and what results they might look like and how you can help your young person through that, and what support is available in this period for you. We do also have some guest speakers. So the lovely Joanne from Mid Kent College, the careers advisor there, has pre-recorded us a video so to give you some guidance on kind of from their college point of view. And we also have Tom Campbell, who is the service support leader for the NEET support service, and he's going to talk through some possible support in terms of kind of what might be available if you need it within the kind of summer autumn terms. So who is this podcast relevant for? It's relevant for you if you haven't yet made an application or if your young person hasn't made an application. If they're feeling unsure or they're changing their mind about what options they might want to do in the future or what they've currently applied for. If they have any concerns with their entry requirements. If they haven't or aren't sitting any exams. If they only currently have one offer or application in place for September, or just if you'd like to feel a little bit more informed and have a little bit more information about this transition period, and perhaps it's your first time of going through this. So again, just a little bit more information about us as a team and the kind of landscape of Year 11 and this transition. In 2023 to 2024, there were just under 16,000 Year 11 learners on KentChoices, and KentChoices had 375,000 views on Kent the Choices website, viewing over 3,000 courses on KentChoices, and we supported over 1,000 people over the summer holidays in this transition. 300 different queries on results day, and 180 of them were phone calls. In this current year group, there are 21,000 Year 11s in Kent, and that is 2,000 more than there have been previously. So in terms of kind of different things and how to make their decisions, there might be lots of things on their mind on how they choose what they want to do. They might be choosing something because they want it to be familiar to them. It might be because of certain subjects that they want to pursue. And they might be considering their entry requirements because different things have different entry requirements. It will depend what they can access. It might be because they want classroom-based learning, or the opposite, that they don't want classroom-based learning. They might be influenced a little bit by their friends and yourself as their family, but also what pathways they want to do in the future. Perhaps they have an idea of what they want to do as a career, or that they want to go to university in the future, so they're using that to guide their next steps. So what are those next steps then? So there are primarily 5 different options that young people can look at after year 11 as their post-16 options. I'm going to go through each one very, very quickly. And if you would like more detail about each of them, there are some pre-recorded podcasts that we've done earlier on in the year that will help you go over these in a bit more detail. So we have our initial one that we ran in November that will look at all of these options in detail. We then ran another one in February that looks specifically at apprenticeships. But essentially, sixth form is an option if your young person wants to pursue their learning as they're used to already. It can offer quite a familiar environment, and different schools will offer different subjects, but typically these will be A levels, BTEC or IB, and young people will typically pick 3 different subjects to study. It's very classroom-based learning, and it will be assessed either through exams or coursework. Entry requirements for each sixth form will vary, and they will typically need their 4s in maths and English, and then there might be subject-specific requirements for the subjects that they want to do as well. They might want to pick a new subject at sixth form that they haven't studied before, so let's say photography, and that entry-specific entry requirement will come from a similar topic, so they might ask for a certain grade in art, for example. They typically go into sixth form 5 days a week, but they will have things called free lessons where they can independently study. So although it's similar to what they're used to, there will be time for independent study, and there's a lot more importance on that. And the subjects that are offered in sixth form, again, they're quite similar to what they're used to, and we call them non-vocational subjects, so things like science, maths, English, geography, history, etc. You next have college. So college varies from sixth form in that you only typically study 1 subject, and they're more non-vocational subjects, so it's gearing them up for the world of work. So you can study things like carpentry, childcare, health and social, hair and beauty, things that are really going to prepare them for different career pathways. It's a more practical way of learning, so although there will be some classroom-based element, there'll be lots of kind of workshop-based things because of the subjects that they're learning, and it will be more practical for them, so that might be better suited. There will still be exams and coursework, but you might find that it is a little bit more coursework-led, just depending on your course. And typically you'll go into college 2 to 4 days a week, on average 3, but it will depend if they're working on their maths and English as well. In terms of entry requirements for college, colleges offer different levels of learning, so ranging from foundation to level 3. In order to access a level 3 course, they will need their grade 4 in maths and English, but they can access a grade 2, level 2, if they have got a grade 2 or 3 in their maths and English. An apprenticeship offers them to go out to start work, as well as working towards their formal qualifications. So they'll spend 80% of their time working and 20% of their time studying. There's a whole range of different apprenticeships available, and they range from level 2, which is equivalent to GCSEs, all the way up to level 7, which is equivalent to masters. And there's over 700 different types of apprenticeships that they can do. And again, it offers a very practical way of learning if that is what they prefer, and it can open lots of different possible future pathways. So again, they could go on to university afterwards, into employment, and whatever it is that they are choosing to do within their kind of career. You then have training, and I'm going to look at training with you kind of in these next couple of slides. But a training provider offers you a smaller environment, and they might focus on something specific like sport or music, but they will also offer maths and English. So if your young person is continuing to work towards these after year 11, they can offer a nice, small, supportive environment to do that. And then work with training is a combination, as it suggests, of work with training, but it allows your young person to meet that government standard of them being in full-time education until the August after their 18th birthday. So depending on where you live will of course depend on what different options is available to your young person. And so Kent is split into 4 areas. You've got north, east, south and west. And kind of depending, as I said, where you live in those areas will depend what you have to access. On the Kent Choices website, you can go into each area page to start having a look to see what provision is in your area. So there's lots of different logos that are going to come up on the screen here. So as I said, they all specialise on different things. You have the bigger colleges, but then also those smaller training providers that focus on different things. So things like Sport Connect and Charlton Athletic, they're very sporty based. You've got Super Jam that are very music based. KTNA, they're very focused on kind of work experience and preparing you for work, the world of work and apprenticeships. As I said, they all offer something different, and so have a look within your area page on Kent Choices to see if there is something that might suit your young person. So in terms of college applications then, it's not too late to submit a college application if that is what your young person is looking at. And we're going to hear from our first guest speaker in the form of a pre-recorded video, Joanne, who's going to give her perspective. She's from Mid-Kent College, but the advice is quite general. And even if you don't live in this area and this isn't your local college, it's all very applicable.
Hi everyone, my name is Joanne. I'm one of the careers advisors here at Mid-Kent College, and I've been asked to join you today just to talk to you about the next few weeks, what you can expect if you're thinking about joining college in September. It's not too late to apply to college. You can still do that. So you can do that in a couple of different ways. You can either do it through the Kent Choices website, so you should have your login details from your school, or you can go directly onto that college page and apply for your course that way. So Mid-Kent College, for instance, you just type in Mid-Kent College and you look for the courses section, and it's got a drop down box, and you go to the subject area that you're most interested in and you apply for that course. What happens then is you'll be invited in for an interview. It's nothing scary, so you'll be invited to come in and meet with those tutors. So it could be that you can apply, or you may apply for 2 different courses. So you might have to have 2 different interviews where the tutors will ask you a bit more about why you're interested in that course, and they'll also talk to you about the grades that you will need to get onto that course. So this is important. This is something called a conditional offer. So your conditional offer from college is when you are offered a place on the course, but on condition you get the grades needed for that level. So for instance, if you're applying for level 2 business, you'll need to have 4 GCSEs at grade 3 or above, including English or maths. So once you've applied and you've had your interview and you've got your conditional offer, over the summer you'll receive a link from us. It's an email link, and it will tell you what day to come in August. So it's normally the very end of August, possibly the first week of September, and that's called your enrolment link. That's a specific day and time to come in to bring in your GCSE results. So you'll come in on that day, you'll bring your GCSE results, and that tutor will be able to say whether or not they can then definitely offer you a place on that course. If your GCSE grades are slightly lower than what are needed for that course, they may speak to you about going on to a lower level of course. If your grades are higher, they might talk to you about going on to a higher level of course. So as I say, it's important that you realise you put in an application, you'll get your interview, and then you come to enrol with us in August or September. So you've got your results, but you don't yet have a place at college, and you might be worrying about that. So what we might be talking about is going onto the waiting list. So over the last few years, colleges have been getting a lot more applications. So it may be that the course that you want to go onto is full, and you would then be put onto our waiting list. So the tutors do work through this waiting list on a regular basis, and it could be that some students don't take up their place. They might be staying at their sixth form, for instance, or going off and doing an apprenticeship. So if there is space, then that waiting list will change every day. So it is an option that you can go onto the waiting list. You may still get a place on a course, but again, this is where it's really important to consider all your options and make sure you're putting in more than one application for multiple places. So it's really important that you submit that application. What we don't want to do is make it even more stressful for you and have you turning up at the college when we don't have spaces available. So it's so important that you put in that application so that we can invite you in for an interview. It may be a late interview, so it may be later than you would typically be starting, but as long as we've got your application, we will keep in touch with you throughout the process, and as I say, keep in regular contact to invite you in if we have a space become available on the course. If, as I say, you haven't quite got the results and you're not sure what to do, please do speak to us and we'll be more than happy to help.
So hopefully that was helpful to hear that from the college point of view, and that's some really great advice from Joanne there. And we just wanted to really echo that if you do get put on a waiting list for college, as Joanne said, you might still find a place within that college, and they might have people that have dropped out, picked a different course, etc. But we just want to kind of really make sure that you do have another backup plan in place. So if you do get put onto a waiting list, we would really encourage you to still make other applications, either to a different course at that college or the course of your choice at a different college campus, or even a sixth form, just to make sure that if you don't get a place on that waiting list, because although it's hopeful, it's not guaranteed, that you still have a place for your young person to start in September. If your young person has an EHCP, we would recommend that you visit the KCC Send Information Hub just to get any more information that you need. There's lots of bits on there that might be helpful for you in terms of what's accessible to them. If you do have any, again, specific questions about your young person, there is a way that you can contact them through there, and you can raise that for a form so that someone can reach out to you and hopefully guide you on your young person's journey. Also within KCC that we thought might be of interest to highlight to you is the Supported Employment Service. So the Supported Employment Service can work with young people who have SEN difficulties, whether they've got that EHCP or not, to help them into a workplace. They can introduce their kind of service a lot better than I can. So we're just going to watch this short video that's going to talk you through the work that they might be able to support your young person with.
Well, in the current economic climate, the search for staff has never been more urgent, and yet many employers don't consider candidates with disabilities, and that is 1 in 5 of the population.
But there's a lot of support available, both for potential employers and employees, so that they can find the perfect match, as Tony Green has been finding out.
Zoe O'Donnell loves her job working at a hotel. So much so, in an industry famous for a quick turnover in staff, she stayed here for 4 years. She has a learning difficulty, and for many people with disabilities, finding a job can be a challenge. Zoe's route to work was different.
There was a supported employment team, what got me the job, and I had to do a 10-week work experience, just to give me a bit of confidence first to know if I could get a job. I really enjoy it, getting a bit of independence and getting out and about.
She's amazing. She looks the part. She's always very well presented. She cares, loves talking to customers, and I think customers love her talking to them.
Alicia Moyles works for the education people, helping anyone with a disability find paid, sustainable employment.
Lots of employers are really worried about employing people with disabilities, and some people with disabilities have very low aspirations. We have people with all sorts of abilities, some that have been untapped and people didn't realise they had those abilities. We don't want employers doing anybody any favours. We want the person to be a real asset to the employer.
Jack Biggs's skills secured an apprenticeship at this construction engineering company in Whitstable.
I've got ADHD and autism. I've had it since, well, I got diagnosed about 7. Going through college, I didn't think I'd be able to get a job like this. We done the Wembley Stadium, the changing rooms. I'm actually really proud of that. Just to say that all the England players have been using something I've made makes me a bit excited, happy. I'm not really good with all the paperwork sort of stuff. So that's why I wanted to do carpentry. It sort of suits me, my personality and stuff.
At the end of his work experience, we found that Jack had great knowledge of the industry and enthusiasm. So we were prepared to offer him a apprenticeship.
With 1 in 5 people having a disability, there's an untapped talent pool waiting for their chance to get to work. Tony Green, ITV News, Whitstable.
And all the best to them.
And so I'm now going to hand over to my colleague Ed, who's going to speak you through some summer actions and different situations you may find your young person in and how to handle them.
Thank you, Zara. Good evening, everyone. Yes, my name's Ed Pantin. I'm the engagement officer for primarily the west of Kent, but of course, like all the engagement officers, will support across Kent and beyond. And as Zara just mentioned there, I'm just going to talk through some actions that you could take and maybe should be taking over the summer. I'm then going to introduce some further and future support if required. After summer or even still during the summer, and then tackle some of those pre-asked questions. So thank you to those that sent in some questions before. So 2 scenarios that I would like us to talk through, or I'm going to go through. So if I haven't made an application yet, so some of your young people may have not even made an application yet, and then what to do on results day. So some of us might have some young people, or yourselves as parents and carers, have some anxiety, some stress, and just some questions really about, okay, what does results day look like? So the first scenario, I haven't made an application yet. This also, the advice we give for this will be the same if someone has, a young person's changed their mind or has some doubts about maybe they have applied to one destination, but are thinking potentially applying for 2 or 3 other places. So if you haven't made an application or think about changing your mind, the first thing we would like to encourage and like to sort of give you confidence on is there's still time. As already referenced, and I'll echo what Joanne has said regarding college, just as one of the destinations, that actually just putting in an application over the summer and being part of that process is going to be really important. So there's still time to apply and put in an application to any of those destinations that Zara's talked through earlier. So yeah, really important. There's still time, and you can do that as of this evening, as of now. If you're looking, okay, where can I apply or where can I get more support, etc., etc., there is so many places to look. If you have attended Year 11, if you've gone through the school, then that's going to be your first point of contact. So they're still open until sort of mid-July, so you can still go back to those. They'd be your first point of contact. Then there's a range, as you can see on the screen, of other people, services that can support you and guide you through those applications, and again taking those questions that you may have and that we may not have tackled this afternoon, or this evening I should say. If you received an invite for the podcast via myself, Zara, or our colleague Liberty, then you will already have some of our direct information as well. For example, our contact number and our email. So again, you can get in contact with us through the KentChoices as well. And as we said, please don't wait until results day. We see lots of young people, lots of parents and carers believe and have the misconception they have to wait for results day. That isn't the case. Again, echoing what Joanne said earlier, these conditional offers and interviews will happen and could happen throughout the summer and early into September. So if you are thinking about college, or thinking about training providers, or even sixth forms, you can still put in an application and await some correspondence from them. And then doing that over the summer, you can create some options. And again, just repeating what Zara showed you earlier, you can select from any of these destinations, depending on, of course, your grades, or your young person's grades, but you can move it across areas as well. So if, say earlier on we showed West Kent, it could be that there's a provider in North Kent that you can get to, then fantastic, you can apply to there as well. And you can actually apply for as many destinations as you feel suitable. And if you action those points over the summer, it will make results day. It doesn't matter what position you're in, whether your young person has sat exams, hasn't sat exams, overachieves, whatever the situation might be, having multiple destinations will definitely support a young person's stress levels and your stress levels on results day, knowing that you've got multiple options and multiple destinations on what ifs, plans change, etc. Now, talking about results day, some results day advice. First thing is, most of us will know that results day is the 21st of August this year. So that's when you're going to have to physically go into school or wherever you may have done your exams and collect your results. We have some top tips around results day, around that week, around that period, or even on the day. First thing is, of course, your first point of contact will be your school. So if you are collecting results, then the school will have career advisors, support, sixth form teams, etc., senior staff that will be there to support you. So please don't just collect your results and sort of run off, so to speak, even if they're not as positive or better than you thought. Definitely liaise with your school. Then you should already have some sort of contact with your planned destination, but you can contact them and establish what the situation is based on your results. And again, echoing for the third time what Joanne said earlier, that you are able to still speak to them if your grades aren't quite as good, or if you've, again, overachieved as well. And that would be the same for any provider, not just Mid Kent College, across all those images you saw earlier, including sixth forms. There's a couple of things you might want to establish over the summer is, do you need to physically go in to accept, or can you just be done online through KentChoices, for example? So again, contact the relevant places, destinations, and just confirm whether or not it needs to be done physically, or you can do it online. As again, Joanne said earlier, Mid Kent College's process, and most colleges, it will be an online process. If you are physically going to destinations to complete your application, to complete your enrolment, then take your GCSE slip with you. A really big bit of advice there. Keep it safe, but do take that with you just as evidence. And the last thing that's new to this year that's been introduced on KentChoices is the clearing page. So this will be really useful for those young people that may want to change their mind, or may want to seek other opportunities based on their grades, etc., etc. I'll give an example of what the clearing system is. So the clearing system is an excellent opportunity for students who haven't yet secured a place with a provider or wish to change their mind. So this is going to be the page on KentChoices. And really simply, it's a way in which all providers can update you with where they have spaces. So you'll see it and it looks like this. And it will tell you the availability. So high availability and low availability. So you'll be able to go through it before results day, but on results day as well, and just see, okay, where are there spaces, where are there opportunities in your area and beyond as well. And again, that isn't just colleges, that would be across lots of different providers. And there's 3 different ways that you can contact the provider. And again, that would be done simply through the KentChoices clearing page. If you require further support, as I said, mentioned some of this already, but there's some key numbers and email addresses all on the screen there for you. So feel free to take a quick screenshot of this, or a quick photo that you can obviously, like I said, some of the numbers that kind of align with what we spoke about earlier. Remember your school, if you have been through year 11 through a mainstream school, etc., then you can contact them directly at the moment. They're still open and there to support you. I will now go on to, if, of course, at this point we're talking about hopefully action all those plans, but we do know that there are going to be situations where potentially that they're not as successful, and maybe further support is required. I'm not going to say too much. I'll just pass over to Tom Campbell, who can talk about the Neat Support Service.
Thank you, Edward. As Edward said, I'm Tom Campbell. I manage the Neat Support Service. So who are we? We are a service commissioned from Kent County Council, and we're formed to support young people aged 16 to 18 years old, so in year 12 and 13. Their focus is to work on those who are not in education, employment or training, and help them to identify any possible opportunities, offering advice and support to overcome barriers along the way. And if we can go to the next slide, please, Edward. So what sort of support is available? With local advisors in all districts of the county, the worker can support a young person on an individual level. How this support is shaped is agreed between the worker and the young person. This could be face-to-face appointments, by telephone, text or email. The young person can agree with the worker to be in touch with the parents' carers if that is what's wished, and it is quite common. The support offered is dependent on the individual's need, but it can include practical support to write a CV, complete applications, signposting and referring to specialist services, or empowering the young person, bringing confidence to make their own decisions about their next steps. The next one, please, Edward. Just here, we've got a little video. This is one of our staff called Bal, who works in the north of the county. She should tell a little bit more about us.
Hello, we are the Needs Support Service and we support young people aged 16 to 18 years old who are not in education, employment or training. Many young people from every type of background find themselves in this situation, so you are not alone. We offer one-to-one support, whether this be in person, by phone or email, and can help you identify short and long-term goals and make a plan to achieve these. For some, this might be all you need. However, we know that many other things can be a barrier. So we provide support, information and guidance to help you manage mental health, finances, addiction, relationships, and a whole manner of issues. Don't worry if you don't feel ready or are not able to go into something straight away. We are here to help you to see a way forward. We have an advisor in your area who can help you no matter what grades you may have achieved or barriers that you may be facing. We will help you look at what skills and qualities you have and how these can be used going forward. We will listen to what you would like to achieve and support you to explore all the different options that may be available, allowing you to make the decisions on what you would like to do next. At some point in our lives, most people will find that they have a time when they are out of work, training or education. If this happens to you, just remember we are here to help.
We are going to go to some questions that we find quite common questions that we hear through our interactions with the Needs Support Service. Young people have similar concerns, so do the family, and we'll just try to address a few of those. So I can't go to college without qualifications. As you've heard, prior qualifications are not always necessary to get into college. However, without certain qualifications, you may need to take an initial course before being able to go on to your first choice. Some people, however, choose to gain these entry qualifications through training providers. The Needs Support Service is available to help and discuss the options available. Will our benefits be impacted? Benefits are not something that are under the control or influence of the Needs Support Service, nor are the workers experts on benefits. Therefore, we aren't able to offer a great deal of advice. What we do know is that if someone is receiving child benefit for Year 11 age young people, a letter will have been sent asking what they are going to be doing from September. If they are not continuing in approved education or training, the benefit is scheduled to stop at the end of August. For those young people who have not found their next steps at the start of September, it may be possible to receive an extension for up to 20 weeks. This child benefit is whilst they are looking for suitable opportunities in education. In order to qualify for this, the young person must be registered with the Needs Support Service. So it is worth bearing in mind that parents and carers can refer to the Needs Support Service. Another question we hear is, can't I just go to work? You may have heard during time at school or elsewhere that you need to stay in education or training until you're 18 years old. This comes from the Education and Skills Act 2008. Within this law, you can work, but to meet the requirements, you should also be doing part-time study towards regulated qualifications. However, as a service, we recognise that this isn't always possible immediately, and we acknowledge that you can be building and developing other skills whilst working. Therefore, we would prefer you to be doing this rather than nothing at all. What could happen, however, is that we would speak to you about whether there is any way that training could be included to help you develop your career further. This may involve other ways, such as seeing if an apprenticeship could be created within whichever role you are working in. Will we be fined? Again, this is something that comes from the Education and Skills Act. Although the law states that young people should be in educational training until they turn 18, we have not seen any instances whereby fines are given. The guidance realised that this isn't always happening, and this is where the Neat Support Service comes in. The guidance encourages those who are not in education or training to engage with their local support service to be supported to learn of new opportunities and find suitable provision. Therefore, if you, as the young person or the parent or carer, is in touch with the Neat Support Service, you are working towards meeting this requirement. An important part of that is if you are in that situation, contact us. That's what we're here. We're here to help. And I will hand you back to Ed.
Thank you, Tom. Yeah, so hopefully you can see there that through this podcast, we've tried to tackle kind of the before the summer, what you could be doing right now, and then on results day and around that period. And then, of course, Tom now tackling actually what happens after results day. And potentially you could work with the Neat Support team even before results day as well. So you can get in contact with us or get in contact with the Neat Support service if directly, if again you feel that actually that support around not being in education, employment or training will be beneficial. So we're now going to open up the Q&A box. So if you have any questions, additional questions on top of what we've spoke about already, then please pop those into the chat. We won't be able to unmic or anything like that, so it will just be directly into the chat. And as Zara's already mentioned at the start, during our housekeeping, any duplicated questions, we're going to sort of generally answer those as best we can. Please keep any questions confidential, and if you have more in-depth questions and more kind of detail, there's an email address there, the KentChoices at theeducationpeople.org. Pop your email to them and it will come to us and we can then get in contact with you to tackle those questions. While we're collating those questions, I just want to talk about some further support and information that you may want to go through. So if you want more information, we've referred to a couple of times. This is actually our third podcast of the year. Our first podcast was all the way back in October. That's where we went through in a bit more detail about those providers. So that all those images and logos that Zara showed earlier, we went in a little bit more detail about what they offer and where they may be around Kent. So if you want more information, please go back and watch that video. That can be found on the KentChoices website and also on our YouTube channel. The second podcast back in February was all about apprenticeships. And again, we went into more detail about where to find apprenticeships, the application process, the levels. It was really rich in information, that podcast. So that's why we haven't, again, gone into too much depth today about where to find them, etc. Because again, that resource is out there and again found in the same place as the first podcast, which is the KentChoices website and on YouTube. And alongside that, because we know particularly apprenticeships can be quite new and complicated for some of us at times, we've actually got a guide to talk you through apprenticeships in a step-by-step. So that goes alongside the podcast and it can be it's a really powerful tool to use and definitely make the process more simple for us. Next, on KentChoices, you will find, again, Zara mentioned this earlier on, you can actually go into your area or the area in which the training provider or college or sixth form is, and we actually, if you go into the area, you can actually break down all of the contact details for every single destination. So you can see here an example from Ashford College down to Canterbury College, all the way down to Lighthouse and then Cheltenham at the bottom. So it's got the email address and contact details. So again, if you're now sitting there thinking, actually, yep, I'm really thinking about sport and Cheltenham, somewhere that I may be interested in and it's in my area, well, there's the contact details to get directly in contact with them and make those applications or to learn more about that, how to apply. So those pre-asked questions, so thank you to those that sent in those pre-asked questions. Just helps us sort of shape the podcast and think about some of the misconceptions there may be. The first one that was asked in different ways, but this is a quote that I took, was how and when will I find out if my child has a space in college? So again, for the sort of fourth or fifth time, I'm echoing what Joanne said earlier, and this is the case across the county, again, not just Mid-Kent College, is that they would have received, your young person, yourself, if you're year 11, would have received a conditional offer. Remember, it's not too late to make those applications and then receive a conditional offer. And then you'll be interviewed. Then after that, on results day, you can accept the offer, or even before results day, sorry, you can accept the offer. And as Joanne mentioned earlier on, and all other colleges the same, you'll then be given an enrolment day. Okay, so that's the process. That's how you'll know if you've got a space, is that you're going to make an application. Even if you're sitting here right now and you haven't made that application, you're going to create an application, get a conditional offer alongside an interview, then a conditional offer, accept the offer on results day, and then be given an enrolment day. Outside of that, of course, you could be placed on that waiting list, as already referenced. If you're on the waiting list, it's really important that isn't a queue. A waiting list means that there needs to be a space created for you to join. So we really do strongly advise that we are looking at other destinations and not just waiting to hopefully get into that course, as Zara has already mentioned. We also had some questions around not being available on results day. So you might be on holiday. If you are not available on results day for holiday, then there's a couple of things that you need to do. You need to speak to your school, of course, and potentially nominate somebody else to go and collect the results, or have them potentially sent to you via the post. So there's a form of communication that needs to happen with the school there, and that will be the same for potentially any enrolment days at any of the providers and destinations you go to. So yeah, speak to the school, make sure they know you're not going to be available, and come up with a solution. And then do the same with if you're going to another sixth form, contact that sixth form and say, look, we're not actually available on the day. What do we need to do, and what's the plan around that? So that's going to change on a case-by-case basis. We had lots of questions around potentially not sitting exams. So maybe you didn't sit exams, maybe your young person is very likely not to maybe potentially get grades, whatever the situation might be. You're absolutely still able to make applications. Again, looking at those training providers, and some courses, bespoke courses at college, will be accessible for your young person. It's about doing the research, going back, looking at episode 1 of our podcasts, and going to KentChoices and looking at the contact information and contact them and seeing, okay, what are the entry requirements. But if you're ungraded, it will mean that resitting maths and English potentially going into year 12 and 13. But yeah, definitely contact those providers. And like I said, if you want more information about that, go back to episode 1. And then there was lots of questions around apprenticeships, whether that was just general apprenticeship knowledge around the levels and the pay, and then we had lots of questions around actually, maybe in certain industries like architecture, for example, or whatever other industries you might be interested in. Again, echoing what I've just said, we have a whole podcast on that, where we actually had an employer come and speak. We had an apprentice come and speak. So definitely go back and watch those videos to get more information. And if that's still not enough, if you still want some more, then definitely get in contact with us. Well, I will show you, though, that there is a place to find some vacancies and some really important information to support an apprenticeship application can be found across these 7 platforms. Unfortunately, there's not a one-stop shop really for apprenticeships. But yeah, across these, from, as Zara mentioned earlier, from sort of the level 2 apprenticeships all the way up to level 7, they can be found across these platforms. I'm now going to pass back over to Zara to see if there's any questions in the Q&A box and to close. Thank you, Zara.
Thank you, Ed. And yes, I just wanted to touch on one more question, just in regards to someone asking, can you only apply to what's in your area? No, absolutely not. You can apply to anything that your young person can logistically travel to. So just because we kind of separate it into the 4 areas on KentChoices, just to make it logistically easier for you to kind of look what's available to you. But potentially you might live on the outskirts of one area, or there might be an ideal provision that's just a little bit further out for your young person. So yes, you can absolutely apply outside of those areas. You're not stuck to just what's in your kind of quarter of Kent. So thank you everyone for attending today. We really do appreciate it, and we hope that it has been helpful for you. As I mentioned at the start, if you have missed any bits or there's any bits that you want to go back to, the recording of this webinar will be up on KentChoices in a couple of days, and we will email it out to everyone that has signed up. So do look out for that. And if you do have any follow-up questions or you want to ask something more specific to your young person, then as I said, do get in contact with us on that KentChoices email address. And again, you can find that on the KentChoices website, or you can find a phone number where you can give us a call, and we'll be more than happy to help you. Again, I hope this has been helpful for you. Thank you all for coming along, and I hope you all have an enjoyable rest of your evening.